Welcome back. Now, in just a matter of hours, the IEC will announce the final results of the municipal elections for 2021. Support for the ruling party has declined, but with dozens of hung councils, coalition talks are likely to take centre stage now. For more on this, eNCA election analyst Wayne Sussman is back with us in studio. Wayne, thank you very much again for staying with us throughout this period, this very tiring period. Hung councils, 68 apparently, according to the IEC so far. So we're going to see quite a lot of coalition governments across the country.
Correct. And it's much more complicated this time, because I want to take you back to a critical and pivotal image which defined the 2016 local government election. And that was Julius Malema sitting with the then Secretary General of the EFF, Godrich Gardy, and Floyd Shivambu on his other side, with Alexandra Township as his backdrop. And there he made a speech where he said they are not going to go into any coalition. However, they will help the opposition wherever they can to oust the ANC. And from that pivotal day, we saw a DA mayor elected in Tshwane, a DA mayor elected in the city of Johannesburg, and a DA mayor elected in Nelson Mandela Bay. And there are other examples of this in places like Metsimaholo, Sasolburg, where there was a smaller local party. Things are much more complicated this time because the DA have said that they refuse to work with the EFF. That's a campaign promise they made. And at the same time, the numbers are as such that there are quite a number of permutations where you can. The EFF are not necessarily in the same powerful position as they were in 2016. So it's a lot of complicated maths, a lot of new players. Gates and McKenzie and the Patriotic Alliance, we spoke about, eNCA was speaking about them earlier, in councils in the Western Cape. You see in KwaZulu-Natal some new parties like the Bantu Boto Convention, the IFP, the NFP. So we are in for a fascinating few days. So the vote counting might be over, but now the coalition negotiations begin.
Yeah, so this election period is actually not over yet. South Africans should not think that we're done, especially in the city of Tshwane. Tell me more about that, because at some point this week when I was looking at those numbers, the DA was way ahead of the ANC, at some point almost at 40 and the ANC at 25%. Suddenly overnight, this morning, the ANC is at 32, the DA at 30. How's it looking right now? Are they a tie?
So it's very close. So what is your path? Remember, there are 214 seats in Tshwane Council. So can the DA or the ANC get to that magical number of 108, 50 plus 1? Okay, so I just saw the council seats being released, but basically I've just done the math of saying that there's a strong chance that the DA could work with a party like Action SA. We know that the Freedom Front will be willing to work with the DA, and we can assume the ACDP. And I don't know if my maths is rusty, but I got to 50% on the mark. If you bring those parties together, we might be out by a seat or two. That means, is there a party which the viewers or you and I have never heard of? I just saw one, the Unemployed Independent Movement. Are they going to be the party? A party which no one had heard of, most of South Africa had never heard of before this local government elections, to push the DA over the line? Or is there another configuration which could take the ANC over the line? So this is going to be absolutely fascinating. Tshwane, the nation's capital, is on a knife edge.
But Wayne, also what's interesting is going back to that point that you made about the EFF leader, Julius Malema, and that backdrop of Alexandra with Godrich Gardy saying that they will not go into a coalition with the ANC. That's what they said back then. Today, changing tune and saying we are willing to talk to anybody. But the DA in its manifesto promising its electoral that it will not go in bed with the EFF. So this means it could be between any of the two. Correct.
Now let's use an example of an election result. Okay. In Emfuleni, which is Vanderbijl Park in Vereeniging by the Vaal River in Gauteng, you saw this is a traditional ANC stronghold. The ANC lost about 33% of its seats, give or take. They are, for the first time in local government history, under 50%. Now, you see the DA's votes go up there. You see the EFF doing fine there. Do the residents of Emfuleni, who came out to vote, want the ANC to come back? Or let's take an average voter, a conservative, white Afrikaans person sitting in a Vereeniging suburb. Does he want the ANC to come back, with the DA or another party, or does he say, I don't care who the DA and the Freedom Front do business with. I just want a change of direction and a change of leadership in my council. Political parties, put your ideologies aside and get together and do something better for my town, because Mfuleni cannot take 5 years of the same old. So we are going to see fascinating conversations, and I implore the political parties to understand the voters who queued in the sun or the rain or the hail in Guyana and think of why they spent time at the ballot box on Monday, and make decisions for the residents of your city, and let's make our councils better and more functional in the next 5 years.
Oh, absolutely. But also the UDM leader, Bantu Holomisa, saying this is simple. The DA and ANC must just meet. Ramaphosa and Steenhuisen should meet and put their differences aside and stop using the smaller political parties, or the new ones, as Herman Mashaba would say, for his party, to fight their battles. Now, the DA saying that it won't work with the EFF. The EFF does have the numbers to give the DA the power that they need, especially here in Gauteng, in all the metros in Gauteng. Would this mean that maybe they should listen to what the UDM is advising?
Well, the UDM is saying that the ANC and the DA should get together. By the way, that's a risk for both parties.
Yeah.
When one looks at 2016, and back to that backdrop example which we used earlier of Alexandra Township, I would say that the DA leadership said, better the devil you know, better working with the devil you don't know than the devil you do know. Because Jacob Zuma for suburban South Africa was a spectre they didn't want to do business with, and EFF was the devil they didn't know. 5 years later, John Steenhuisen, maybe his polling's telling him, we better tell our voters we're not going to do business with the EFF. So they don't want to do business with the EFF, then you're forced to speak to the ANC unless you want to spend 5 years in opposition in a majority of our metros. However, if you work with the ANC, there's a risk attached. If the ANC works with the DA, there's a risk attached. People have their eye on the 2024 election. Will voters punish us if we get into bed with the DA? Will the ANC voters punish us if we get into bed with the EFF? That's the million-dollar question.
But also what was interesting for me, was the city of Ekurhuleni. The ANC really thought that they had that one under control. They were talking about how many houses they've built, and I think there were some political analysts on our channel saying that Mzwandile Masina didn't do so badly as a mayor of that municipality. But now, back then, they were at 49%, and all they needed was 2% from smaller parties to rule. They're at 39% now.
So the lived experience of voters might not have been as such as what we expected. We saw a stable administration, but maybe service delivery wasn't as good on the ground. And you see it. You go to the ANC heartlands. That's when we analyze elections. We must always look at the heartlands. You go to places like Tsakani, you go to places like Duduza, you go to places like Etwatwa near Davidton, and you just realize that the ANC was unable to get their voters out to the poll in the same way they did in 2016, and they're losing votes to the EFF. That's why the ANC finds itself at under 40% rather than above the 50% mark.
Let's come back very quickly, Wayne, to the city of Johannesburg. I mean, the coalition government there, we thought was working until suddenly Herman Mashaba and the DA divorced very dramatically, with quite a number of people that he actually left that party with. But also, Action SA is not only stealing from the DA, it seems it's stealing from the EFF and the ANC as well, especially here in the city of Johannesburg.
Correct, and you have to give credit to them. This isn't just a party which grew at the back of the DA. So, for instance, the Freedom Front, they're gaining at the expense of the DA. Action SA gained at the expense of the ANC, gained at the expense of the DA and some other parties. That's very good going forward.
eNCA's elections analyst Wayne Sussman.